Well, hello everybody. It's Thursday, November the 1st, 2018, just coming up on 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And a good evening to everybody. I hope you had a great day. Joe Chaffee here as we move toward Friday and first weekend of the month of November. We've got a pretty active weather pattern. We've got some severe weather possibilities here beginning overnight and during the day Friday and Friday night into early Saturday. So we're going to cover all of that. Shot of rain that is substantial and showing up on the radars tonight, which we're going to get to. We'll look at the long range, and we're going to look at some uh, snow cover growth, the Siberian snow cover growth. The month of October ending here and has ended, and some of the work that surrounds it looks at the month of October specifically, snow cover growth and the rate of snow cover growth, and the possible impacts it could have on the winter or not. There's always, as always, I've said many times with these sorts of things, when you look at the seasonal forecasts, they're just it's just one of many factors. And by the way, the the Weather Service's the Climate Prediction Center's winter forecast is really doesn't look at a whole lot much beyond the El Nino La Nina situation. They they always write little addendums and footnotes and disclaimers saying that among the variables that uh, they um, they that are out there. We include the North Atlantic Oscillation, the blocking in Greenland, that oftentimes can bring colder air into the eastern part of the United States, and under certain conditions can make things rather stormy. So they just kind of look at it, and they look at the El Nino and the La Nina situation, and they just basically mail it in. I mean, that's kind of how it was last year, and they really missed out on the incredible volatility that we had last winter, if you remember. The very cold first half, the warm second half, and the stormy end to it all. So, again, I'm not a big fan of these seasonal forecasts. I really think that they aren't particularly useful. I like to look at the stuff, and of course, I present it here, but there's no way you're going to get anything from me regarding what I think the winter is like. You know as well as I do that oftentimes we have a lot of trouble just figuring out what's going to happen a few days into the future, let alone trying to look at a few months. So speaking of a few days into the future, why don't we start with that and take a look at the Storm Prediction Center's view of things for the overnight. By the way, a big hello to everybody, and I just wanted to say I love the fact that folks are sometimes coming on hours when I schedule a live stream. If I schedule it early, if I put the schedule up earlier in the day, say about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the live stream doesn't come up until 7 o'clock, people are jumping on the chat at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I think that's just great, and I really enjoy it. And if I'm around and able to, I do jump in on the conversation. I'm usually I get some time, but then there are times when I get pulled away. So if you see me in the chat and then I respond, but then I disappear for a little while, I'm not doing anything on purpose. It's just that I got other work to do and I got to get it done. So let's go right to what the Storm Prediction Center is telling us for tonight and tomorrow. And we do have a marginal risk of severe weather being indicated for a good chunk of the state of Pennsylvania into New York State, the middle and upper Hudson Valley. Another area of marginal risk in eastern North Carolina and for easternmost South Carolina, say from Charleston eastward in that corner there. And a general area of thunderstorms elsewhere. You can see the extent of a line of showers and storms. The severe weather today, nothing like what it was yesterday and last night, where we had the tornado watches that were up across much of the western and central Gulf states. In the meantime, we're getting some rains across eastern Missouri through Illinois and northern Indiana and Ohio. We've got some preemptive flood watches up for that. A little bit of possible thunderstorm activity up in the Dakotas. Otherwise, that's it. The severe weather going into the month of November, usually this is a time where we see this sort of stuff wind down. This has been the last couple of years has been a bit different. I don't know if we're going into some kind of cycle here where we're seeing these thunderstorms. The thunderstorm season in the east and particularly in the northeast lasting longer, or at least getting pushed back into a good chunk of the fall. I can remember as a kid growing up that usually after late September or at the latest early October, you were done with thunderstorms, and you really didn't see any, except in rare instances from November, December, January, and into the first part of February. At least in the Northeast, anyhow. This seems to have changed a little bit. I don't know if it's something cyclical or something more, but it is worth noting certainly that we're still having to deal with this sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, by the way, if we do wind up with some thunderstorms, that they'll probably be more along the lines of the type that may produce strong gusty winds, and not necessarily thunderstorms that produce any kind of rotation or tornadoes. Though we saw what happened last week with the nor'easter. Here's by the way, here's WPC's, the Weather Prediction Center's rainfall profile for the next 7 days. Now, of course, much of this is shifting eastward and diminishing because of the rain that fell yesterday in the Ohio Valley and down into the middle and lower Mississippi Valley. So that's why it's showing less. That forecast that we had up from yesterday was basically front end loaded. So a good chunk of the rain that was indicated has already fallen. So this takes us out through the next 7 days, but yet still there's another couple of inches of rain to play through parts of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. But in the east, this is going to be from now through Saturday morning. The bulk of this is going to fall in that time frame, and then we're going to have to look at the next round of rain, which will probably come later Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday, as we got another series of systems to deal with. But the rainfall amounts are pretty substantial over the next 7 days of several inches or more, particularly up in New England, where we're looking at some 4 and 5 inch plus amounts, covering just about all of New England. And then, of course, in the Southwest, it's pretty quiet, nice and dry. We do have action for the Northwest as well, some hefty precip as we start to get weather systems coming into the Pacific Northwest coast. So busy indeed from the standpoint of rain. And as far as tonight is concerned, we'll start with this regional. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just jump right off the bat. Why don't we just take a look? I've got the wide view of the radar loop. I think that'll probably be a bit more useful here. So there it goes. We'll bring it forward, and so you see how the radar is fairly loaded. Notice that you've got this the rain that's going on from eastern Missouri through Illinois, northern Indiana, Ohio. That is actually north of the frontal boundary and the first low. The first low is now probably making its way into eastern Ohio, northwestern Pennsylvania, and you've got the trailing line of showers and storms. So it's got that comma-shaped look to it. It's just sort of stretched out a bit because we've got some energy that's hanging back. And if you look through central Tennessee down into northern Alabama, you see there's a narrow line of showers there, and maybe even a couple of thunderstorms in the mix. So that's you've got energy that's running out ahead and energy that's lagging behind, and this is why this is a 2-day event that's going to be going on in the Northeast. And by the way, the weather down through my neck of the woods, where I'm not at right now, I'm down in Florida, where the weather was great today. But when you see the weather that's the radar at the moment throughout much of the Northeast, it is quiet. It was a really bone dry day. Temperatures, from the standpoint of rain anyway, the dew points came up into the 60s and temperatures in the 70s. Throughout much of eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, into southern New England. So November certainly getting started on a warm note. Here's the tighter radar view. So much of the showers are still a good 8 hours away from the coastal area. Starting to see a little bit more of an eastward push to it. All day long, they've been moving northeast or northeast, but beginning to see a bit more of an eastward push to all of this. And then you can see the area of rain that runs, again, from Missouri into southern Michigan and northeast Ohio. That's the overrunning precip that I was talking about. Now, when we look at it on the surface map, you can actually see the frontal boundary pretty well here. The radar echoes I've overlaid on top of them. The wind barbs are on there too, so you can see what the temperatures are all in the 60s. You got that the winds from the south along the coast and going back into western PA. And if you look at the wind barbs as they turn east and then northeast into Ohio, so your low center is probably somewhere west of Pittsburgh, right in that area. And the temperatures, of course, behind the front where you're getting all that rain, very raw, in the 40s, the northeast winds at 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, just an absolutely ugly day and an ugly evening that is underway in parts of the Midwest. But at least, in the East, as we look at this, in the East, weather conditions pretty good. Mertha Gunter, I saw that you mentioned that you're getting a little bit of rain now in western North Carolina, and indeed, when we bring the map down to you, you can see the showers that are going on in the western part of the state, and those extend down into western South Carolina and Georgia, and even into toward the Florida Panhandle. There are some showers and storms north and west of Tampa, and then we've got some showers out in the Gulf of Mexico, waiting for the cold front to move on through. So that's going to happen during tomorrow. Let me just give you the Storm Prediction Center's view of severe weather here, because for tomorrow and into Saturday, we've got a pretty large area of marginal risk that runs up and down the East Coast from Florida all the way up into southeastern New York and into western Massachusetts and southern Vermont and much of the state of Connecticut. The marginal risk goes to just north of Albany. This is trying to get this weather front to come through, and it's going to fight it all the way, all the way pretty much. And when we look at the surface map, bring up the, I'm going to do a little of the paint box today, if I can find it. Let's see. Let's get that paint box up, Joe. And here we go. And so there it is. This is the current surface map. I put the whole U.S. map up here. Might be better if I do, let's see. Well, we can see the whole U.S. map. I think that's probably pretty useful. So here's what's happening right now. So this is for at 8 o'clock tonight. So I'll put the fronts on it so you can see where it is your low. The GFS has it analyzed in southwest West Ohio. It might be a little bit further east than that, but you've got this trailing cold front that runs from the low. There's a warm front that cuts across. Whoops, supposed to change color there. But there's a warm front that runs across northern Pennsylvania, New York State, out off the New England coast. In the areas that are north and west of the low center, you're getting this chilly northeast wind. There's actually some colder air that's running across the northern lakes. It's not cold enough for snow, but it is colder air that's being funneled down. Out in the west, looks like we have some kind of warm front here approaching into the Pacific Northwest with some showers there. You get a little bit of shower activity up in the Dakotas, and of course you can see the snow on the northern fringe with that next system moving along in the Pacific Northwest. Now, where are we going with all of this for tomorrow? So here's the map. I'm going to put up the surface map now for Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, because this is where you start running into some issues with regards to the forecast for Friday. So your low center, and it doesn't really intensify very much, if at all. It's up in northern Maine. I'm sorry, in northern New York State, northern Vermont. The cold front with this is not quite through. It actually stalls out. And there's the upper trough, there's another short wave in upper trough, and I'm going to outline that in the darker red here. So that's back here. So here's your upper trough you're waiting for that to swing around. That is going to cause another wave to develop on this front, and we're going to have to wait for that wave to move on through in order to bring the front in. So the whole area that's ahead of it, and we're talking right through here. So this is where the Storm Prediction Center is outlining its area of risk. This is how it looks for tomorrow afternoon with this weather front that's approaching the coastline. It's just going to have to wait for that upper trough to the west to kind of swing around, and then that's going to push the front through. So when we go to Friday night, there's going to be that second wave, and I'll go to 2 a.m. Saturday now on the surface map. So we'll bring up the surface map here, and I'm just assuming you guys can see it okay, so that's good. Probably see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. And make it just a little bit bigger. There you go. So by that second wave does develop, and by 2 a.m. now you're finally getting that second trough is starting to move along and swinging around. So that the wave is now running up to the northeast. You're getting the frontal boundary to begin to move closer to the coast. That's a pretty decent looking wave that develops here. So that is probably going to produce a heavy rain area as in that area of red that I've just drawn. Here's your upper trough now as it swings to the east, and that is going to lift up, and you're going to wind up getting that low to go by and moving it out to the northeast. And indeed, that I think that's what when we go back to the we're going to go back to the GFS now at this point. So hang on one second. I'm going to put the whoops. Okay, so we go back to the GFS now. So this is for 2 a.m. Saturday, but we'll take you there in the sequence here. So here we go for Friday afternoon. There's your second wave that develops, runs up to the northeast with some heavy rains Friday evening into Friday night, early Saturday morning. That low, takes a while to get going, but finally starts to intensify as it runs up into northern Maine. You see some snow there on the backside, but all of that seems to be falling up on the Canadian side and not on the U.S. side. And as the low moves away, really gets wrapped up fairly deep here as it heads into New Brunswick as a 974 low. It's going to get quite windy up in Maine and in northern Vermont and New Hampshire out of all of this. And then the low runs away to the northeast with some heavy snows for southeastern Canada. Now, Sunday to me looks like obviously Sunday's going to be the better of the two weekend days. I don't think there's any real question about that. But this high is going to be going out into upstate New York. It's going to be going out into New England, and then you're going to get the next low that's going to wind up moving on to the east, and that energy winds up in the Western Lakes because this high holds. That's a strong high that builds up in New Brunswick, and then heads up into Labrador. You set up this onshore flow. You start to bring in Atlantic moisture so that by Monday afternoon, you've got rain all over the place again as a warm front moves on up the East Coast. Meanwhile, by the way, in the West, notice in the Rockies, you're getting that energy that's coming into the Pacific Northwest. So that's bringing rain and snow, and eventually, as colder air takes over, more snow into the northern and central Rockies. That low gets kicked out pretty quickly. So it's not going to be able to produce anything major out in the Rockies, but it is going to be a snow event nonetheless. And it also kicks along this lead energy here in the east. So that first area of rain moves out on Monday to be followed by this next low that runs into the Western Lakes on Tuesday, Election Day, making for deteriorating weather conditions across the east and the Midwest down through much of the Mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic coast states with the risk for some showers and thunderstorms here. That low gets pretty wrapped up as it moves up toward Lake Huron and on up into Canada. Each one of these lows, as they deepen and move, there and the fronts that go by, the shots of cold air behind it will get a little bit colder, a little bit colder, a little bit colder. The one for later next week does bring down a sizable high. Now, how much of that cold air actually gets in here remains to be seen. There's a secondary front at the end of next week. It does get pretty cold up in the northern plains and into the upper Great Lakes, at least through Friday. That second front arrives Friday night and Saturday into the east, but it looks like the coldest air, the cold air is going to get modified to some degree. Still, it is going to be, it's certainly going to be a shot of cold air by any standard, and that takes us into the second week of the month of November and almost to the middle part of the month. So when we examine the upper air and the overall pattern, again, I've seen a number of you, all getting, everybody gets wrapped up through, um, stuff that shows up on social media and with regards to, the weather going forward people talking about early snow events and even getting specific because you get various runs of the GFS model past the 7-day time frame showing something. This is why right now you just don't pay attention to that sort of stuff. Just try and focus on the overall pattern with regards to the long range. It's an active one. It's an amplified one. You've got trough after trough dropping into the U.S. The problem is that the trough position is not exactly that far to the east, so you do get some ridging that develops in between these troughs, and that limits really the extent of the cold air. This is at least through the middle part of next week, and then finally after that you do get an ample shot of cold air. One of the running themes that I think is important, though, as we look at all of this, is the fact that we continue to see the models favoring the idea of higher than normal pressures and heights across the polar region. So this is displacing the jet stream to the south, and it's going to mean for colder air to come in out of Canada. Now, does it have staying power? That is the big unknown here. You do have this particular run of the GFS trying to make more troughing out in the west in the longer range as we start to get past the middle of the month, but we just started November, so we're looking 15 days out. Again, I'm fairly confident we're going to see this general look through day 8 and 9. After that, it's anyone's guess as to what may happen. The European today, which I'm actually going to look at it for the first time with you. But the European in its long range also, again, same problem here. You do have all these higher than normal pressures and heights up across the Arctic region, which should bring down the cold air. But always remember that if the trough positions are not in the right place, it doesn't necessarily mean that the coldest air is going to come into the east. The coldest air may wind up coming into the Great Lakes and Plains, and we only get kind of glancing areas that amounts of that cold air moving into the eastern part of the United States. So the European still has kind of this, sort of blocky look to it going into its long range. But again, more troughing is out in the west. You've got this ridge here out in the Gulf of Alaska, which is not something that I like to see. You're trying to get this trough. There's an upper low sitting on the international date line. There's a cutoff low that's down northwest of Hawaii. So you want to get all this to sort of shift a little bit further to the east in order for it to have any kind of impact with regards to winter weather or early winter weather in the eastern United States. So right now we're kind of in watch and see mode. There are clues with some of the model runs that suggest that perhaps we are going to see some early and more sustained cold, maybe toward the latter part of November and into December. I don't know. That's way out of my league. So I'm just passing along what I've seen with regards to some of the stuff that's out there. Now, we've been talking about Dr. Judah Cohen and the Siberian snow cover. This was off a tweet that he put out today. This is the final chart for the month of October, and the snow cover growth was extremely slow and on the low end of the pace showing up for the last 10 years. Then right around the 22nd or 23rd of October, we had a bit of we had a pattern change in Siberia that caused the snow growth to accelerate. It's the black line, the black dots is this year, and if you follow that up, it kind of moves more toward the top of the range than the bottom of the range. It's kind of right in the middle there. So, one of the things that he points out, he puts out as a question on his tweet is whether the early part going to be more important with regards to the weather in the east, or is it going to be where the growth was extremely slow, or is it going to be the second half, the latter part, where we had this big burst of snowfall going on in Eurasia during the last 7 days? Is which half is going to play the bigger role? And that is one of a bunch of questions, and some of those questions don't refer to the Siberian snow cover issue. So look, it's done and it's out of the way. Now let's see um, what we get out of all of this going forward. By the way, I would just point out that with regards to snowfall, uh, the last 3 winters have shown pretty well that uh, the the colder than normal, above normal snowfall combination does not necessarily have to be there. Okay, so you can have winters with a lot of snow, provided that the cold air is around when it snows. When it's not snowing, it can do whatever it wants. And if you go back to the winter from 2 years ago, that was a perfect example of that. One of the warmer winters on record, also one of the snowier winters on record for some parts of the Northeast, because of the fact that it just snowed at the right place at the right time. There's an overemphasis, in my view, on all of this. Here's the snowfall here across North America for the next 10 days. Again, getting busy across Canada, starting to see a return to snowfall of size in Western Canada, southwestern Canada, where it's been pretty quiet because of the fact that we've had this ridge out in the west. And we're not going to really look too much at this factor anymore, but just for giggles here, the next 10 days, the snow cover growth continues to be pretty rapid across much of Siberia. This is what you would normally expect. Someone asked me the question, how come, you've got all these, they all seem to be pretty close, and they're all, when you look at the chart, everything is always sloping up. Well, snow cover grows in Siberia rapidly every year. It's during the month of October. It's setting the table up for the winter across the northern hemisphere. The thing is, in some years it grows faster than others. In some years it grows faster more on the western flank than on the southern flank or on the eastern flank. But the bottom line is that it grows rapidly. So you got these numbers. The chart is always in the sort of upslope that it paints, and there's not a lot of variability in it. I don't know what the exact measurement, what exactly is used in terms of figuring out the rate of growth, but the chart does show that we saw that acceleration going on at the end, and this continues into the month of November. There are some folks that actually think that the month of November might be more important than the month of October. So again, it's one of so many factors with regards to the season upcoming. And I know all you snow lovers are just itching to get that first snowstorm on the table. I get it. Okay, believe me, I get it. So I'm going to come up to the chat board very quickly, though, before I do that. By the way, there's 2 of me there, so just want to let everybody know that for those of you who are interested in having more weather more often and like what I do, jump on the Patreon platform. It is a subscription platform. It's just $2 a month. the price of a cup of coffee. It's a great way to support my channel videos and all the stuff that I'm doing. You'll get exclusive posts. You can message me at any time. You'll get videos exclusively for Patreon members, although I haven't been doing them this week because I've been away. But next week we'll get back to the regular videos, and those are going to be those are going to work out quite well in situations where we've got storms to deal with in the Northeast. So if you're in the if you're in the Pennsylvania, Southern New England area, it's great for you. If you're elsewhere, but you're really into weather, uh, it may work for you too. So they put the link up on the chat board. If you're interested, just give it a whirl. And again, it's only $2 a month, and you'll get most all weather most of the time because I do have to sleep every once in a while. People have asked me, when do you sleep, Joe? Actually, I've got everything in order in terms of like my schedule of stuff that I do during the day and in the evening. So I have everything kind of timed out. It's actually when I go on vacation that becomes, it really is much more difficult for me because, I'm trying to, have a little downtime and I'm doing other things and I'm out of my regular routine. So when I'm in my regular routine, I got everything under control and I can do 2 or 3 of these during the day. You guys know that when the hurricanes are running around, I'm doing 2 live streams a day plus all my website posts and other stuff. I've got no problem with that. If something like that happens when I'm on vacation, then I got a problem with it. Okay. Um, so anyhow, I sleep like when normal people sleep, Israel. Usually at night, I go to bed around 11 o'clock or so, and wake up in the morning about 6:30 or 7. I don't like to sleep. I don't like to sleep late. Do I stay up for the late models? Asked Scott Briller. Well, I will tell you this. Thank God Sunday, that curse known as daylight saving time comes to an end so that this way um, the models actually come out an hour earlier. So I can move the live streams a little sooner. I can also, when I get home, this is another thing that is going to be a big plus for those of you who are on Patreon. When I get home, and the GFS, the new GFS model will be mostly done, or at least far enough of it will be done where I'll be able to do a live stream, say at 11:30 at night on the new model. The new model runs coming in, and we'll have the new NAM and the new GFS. And during storm situations, I will even wait up for the European, which starts coming out at about 1 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of pushing it for me. So if it's something that's happening in the short range, I'll do that. And if I get to sleep at 1:30, that I'll live with myself the next day. But I can't do it when we're on daylight saving time. But now that we're going back to standard time, that'll be a big plus. Anthony Orr, our resident statistician, always great with the stats about the tropical storms and hurricanes. He does a really great job. Anthony, you are the best. Okay, you are the best. 3 hurricanes on record have made landfall in the continental U.S. in November. The Expedition Hurricane, Category 1 in 1961. The Yankee Hurricane, Category 2 in 1935. And Hurricane Kate, which was a Category 2 in 1985. And the stack credit goes to Philip Klotzbach of Colorado State University. Anthony, you are so insanely good, and we love you. Okay. Yeah, definitely Israel. I'd much rather have it standard time. Joe Rayo and I have talked about this so often about looking forward to when we go to standard time because of that. Just having the models available. I love having the new NAV, especially when it's critical. I do a weathercast at 10 o'clock. So I have the whole NAM model out by the time I go on the air. So if there's any changes, if the models are doing something that requires me to adjust my forecast, I can do it on the fly. And I can tell you that there are a lot of TV people that don't do that. So, but I've always tried to get my hands on the latest information before getting on the air. Joyce Mack, nice to see you here. Robert Hurley, Johnny Quest got the rowboat out. Although at least you're going to get this first thing is going to move out. You'll get a break for about a day and a half or so, and then you're going to get into the next weather system. Yes, Patrick McGill, winter is coming as he puts the snowflakes and the snowman emojis. I noticed that many meteorologists on radio backed off on the rain tomorrow. Sounds like one batch later tonight and a longer one. That's kind of how it's going to play, Israel. You're going to get this first batch late tonight and tomorrow morning. There might be a couple of showers scattered around in between, but then that second area is going to wait until tomorrow night. So there may be a bit of a break. Rap Record, welcome aboard. Patricia Owens, nice to see you on here tonight. And Christina Padilla, the early morning thunderstorm that hit Long Island at 5 a.m., that was 6 or 7 days ago. Yes, it was. And welcome, as I think you're new to the chat. So welcome to the chat. Earl Warren is on. I saw Chris Alley. You're on too. Hope everything's going well by you. And I saw Nan Kumar was on. And Doug Crum, nice to see you on board as well. David Schwartz, I know you got an early flight to Florida on Saturday, was it? I think you asked me. Might delay, but there's probably going to be some delays. Although I don't, I never know what the airport criteria is, and it always varies from airport to airport. Obviously you're going to check with your airline, but uh, always, it just seems that whenever there's a weather problem somewhere, you're going to have issues. Um, Israel, yeah, if it doesn't snow through the whole month of November, that would just be typical. If people start telling me that winter is over before if the month of November comes to an end without seeing a flake of snow, I think I may lose it. Okay, he is our resident statistician, Christina. Anthony is very, very good. I'm going to guess Greenfire 919 without looking at 1935, the Yankee hurricane, but I bet you it's because it impacted New England. So, in fact, I'll do a quick Google search here. Yankee. And no, actually, I'm wrong. So there. The Yankee hurricane of 1935 was a rare Category 2 hurricane that affected the Bahamas and South Florida. It remains the only tropical cyclone to affect Miami from the northeast in the month of November. It was the sixth tropical cyclone and the fifth hurricane of the 1935 season. It developed 227 miles east of Bermuda, strengthened to a hurricane on November 1st. Initially posed a threat. It was along the latitude of North Carolina, and it was actually moving toward the North Carolina Outer Banks. And then it turned southwestward. It peaked intensity November 3rd, made landfall near Miami Beach. And because of its unusual approach, it was nicknamed the Yankee Hurricane. So you know what? I'll put the Wikipedia link up here. So if you guys want to take a look at that, by all means. James NASCAR, how do I like being in Florida? Well, it's nice. The weather's here this week's been great. I'm not too far south in Florida at the moment, but the weather has been pretty good. The dew points actually got a little more humid today, but up until today and even through this morning, it was reasonably comfortable. William Uber, full peak color in your area looks great on the golf course, but not the golf game. Isn't that always the case, Bill? Good. I'm glad for the peak color. Comes right around November 1st, so it looks like a lot of the color change really accelerated in the last week. When I come back, I'll have some. I'll probably be able to see. I got to tell you, the drive down was very interesting because I drove down Route 81 in Western Virginia, which down through Western Virginia, Western North Carolina. I was really quite surprised at how much color there was there. That is a beautiful, beautiful area along the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smokies. Just absolutely insane how how beautiful it is. And I recommend, if you could ever have to do a drive down south, going from north to south, get off 95 and do. It may be a little bit out of your way, but take the I-81, and if you can do it when you know when there's no traffic, maybe on a weekend, it is really, it was just gorgeous. Uh, Mountaintop valleys, the views were just spectacular. The only thing is, I wish that they would have had a couple of turnoff points where you could have gone and stopped and maybe take some pictures, because they really didn't have that. Um, Unless you wanted to just stop along the side of the highway, and I'm not doing that. But it really is. Uh, it really is beautiful. Just typing up something here on the chat board. So anyway, good to know, Bill, that I'm coming home to some peak color. All right, let me just get a couple of things announced. Just as a reminder for those of you. Oh, wait, before that, Mirtha Gunter, what counties in Western North Carolina did we do? I'm trying to remember. So we did, I think, was it 77 to 85? So we did 81 to 77 to 85 as we were on our way to, we stopped in Atlanta. So we were in the westernmost counties. I don't think we passed, um, I want to say we were west of Greensboro, um, past not too far from Asheville. I know we had the option to take the Blue Ridge Parkway down, but we didn't take it this time around. We saved that for another trip. So anyway, okay, so here's some of the announcements going forward. If you are in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, or even if you're in central Jersey and you want to make the drive, I'm going to be at the Bayonne Library in Bayonne, New Jersey on Wednesday, November 7th, the day after Election Day, so that everybody hopefully will have all of this out of their system. And you can come out and talk about weather and the upcoming winter and the hurricane season that we just went through, and anything else you want to talk about. We'll be there at 7 o'clock at the Bayonne Library in Bayonne, New Jersey. My next Long Island Library talk is scheduled for Wednesday, the 12th of December in Babylon on Long Island. So that's Wednesday, December the 12th. James, NASCAR fan, I can't wait for that app to get approved. We actually submitted it to both Google and Apple, and they do from what I understand, what they usually do is it gets rejected. They want you to make a few changes. They were very fast in rejecting it, which is great. So we are making the changes that they recommend we do. So hopefully, I think those changes are almost done. So we'll probably resubmit it if everything goes according to plan. I'm hoping that maybe sometime next week I'll be able to release it to everybody. It'll be free, and it'll focus mainly on my area, which is Eastern PA to Southern New England. But there'll be a few other things on there that even if you're outside of that area, it'll come in handy in the wintertime, because one of the things that I like to do is I put up all the snowfall forecast maps that automatically update from the Mid-Atlantic states all the way up to Maine. So all you have to do is just pull up one page, and you'll get every single Weather Service snow forecast map for the Mid-Atlantic and up into the Northeast. So it'll come in useful for that, and there's satellite and radar on it too. Plus, you can read my long range posts that you might apply to your particular neck of the woods. Let's see. Do I miss my partner Joe? Asked Scott Briller. Of course. Yeah, we do our Joe and Joe show on Facebook, and occasionally we do it here on YouTube. So this week we haven't been doing the Joe and Joe show. So yeah, it's again, it's out of my routine not doing it. So we'll be back together on Monday. But bear in mind that he's going to have some time off to take, so the Joe and Joe show is going to be a bit sporadic. over the next couple of weeks. And what did you do? Green Fire, the bots must have picked up your post talking about Johnny Quest building an ark. A video popped up on my YouTube page showing a guy building a Noah's Ark. Isn't that, it's creepy sometimes. I got to tell you, it's also it's a bit distressing, and it can be distressing and disturbing. I mean, this is really sad actually, but one of my friends, he had death in his family, and he was messaging me and talking about it, and lo and behold, same thing happened. He started getting ads for funeral homes, and it's like, really, I mean, that just that's not good. Okay, so I wish there were, you don't want to, it's one thing to get, like you said, you mentioned the Noah's Ark line, so you're getting YouTubes about, the building of Noah's Ark, but it's another thing to get funeral home recommendations when you've got a close family member that just passed away because a bot picked up on you. Hey, Bill, listen, you're always welcome. One of these days, if I can do it, I might, who knows? I may try and Skype some of you folks in here. So we'll see if we can try that. Christina, you're going to contact the Shoreham Wading River Library uh, about me coming out there. Absolutely. The Shoreham Wading River is certainly close to me as well. So let them have them get in touch with me, and we will try to set up a date. I've done a number of the Long Island libraries. Usually, what happens is they see me. All the libraries actually do look at what the other libraries are doing with regards to their programs, and oftentimes they'll contact people that have been at other libraries to say, why don't you come to ours? So it does happen. But yeah, let them know and have them get in touch with me. Israel, they still have not. Your library in New Jersey has not gotten back to me. I did email them, and they have not even answered me at all. So sometimes the people who set up those programs, they're a bit sporadic. They don't always they don't always get back to me immediately. As far as the Joe and Joe library talk is concerned, Scott Briller, that's a little problematic. The only way that he and I can do it together is that it would have to be on a weekend, and it would have to be at a place where, I mean, we'll both have to wind up traveling to it, which is fine, but it would have to be on a weekend, so it would have to work for both of us. So, but so far we've always put the offer out there, but no one has asked. So maybe one of these days somebody will ask us, and we'll be able to do that. But again, it would have to be on a weekend. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. Let me just one more time. So here's my link again for those of you who are interested who'd like to subscribe to Patreon. It's just $2 a month for more of my weather on a almost 24/7 basis, except for the time that I do have to sleep. And again, it's just the cost of a cup of coffee. Also, let me just really quick, especially now with Christmas coming, you might have Christmas shopping to do. Well, you can do it on the Amazon app that I have on the descriptor to this live stream and the descriptor to this video. Let me just put that link up there for you. But if you shop on Amazon on a regular basis, or even every once in a while, if you do it through my link, then I get some coin thrown back from Amazon. So I get to get a couple of cigars out of this. Let me just put this in here. I can't type and talk at the same time. That's always been, that's an issue for me. So here's the Amazon link. And just as a reminder, we are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and the affiliated sites. And by the way, if you do shop on Amazon using that link, it doesn't cost you anything extra. You buy what you're going to buy. Amazon throws me back some of their coin as a courtesy for driving you toward to Amazon to shop there. So it's again, doesn't cost you a cent. Okay, so that's it. We'll leave it at that. Everybody have a great evening. Going to do a live stream tomorrow night. Over the weekend's going to be a little bit dicey because I'm going to be traveling back. So I really don't know what my schedule is going to be. But if I get back in time and I'm not feeling exhausted, I'll probably pop up a live stream on Sunday. I don't know if we're going to wind up doing one on Saturday, but probably I doubt it. But if we're going to do one, we'll probably do one on Sunday. All right. So have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.